Hey everybody, this is part 2 to my introduction to some of my favorite new annuals for this season. If you missed the first one, don't worry, you can catch it after this one. I want to start right off with petunias because there's a lot of excitement with a couple of these varieties. Probably the most anticipated new petunia is the Amazonas Plum Cockatoo. Take a look at that flower, that beautiful lime color in there, along with a little bit of like light lilac, plus that deep purple throat with a dark veining. And then you also get that incredible ruffly edge. It's absolutely stunning, and the flower is quite large, and the plant gets a nice size as well. There's a reason why so many people are talking about this one. It's just very different and very attractive. The other one getting a lot of buzz is the Cherryburst Yellow Petchoa. Now, a Petchoa is a hybrid of a petunia and a Cherryburst. We usually put it in with the petunias because its size and its care is very similar to a petunia. The big difference is that Petchoas don't get the sticky leaves that we find in petunias. Now, this particular one is beautiful, and everywhere I saw it, it was absolutely covered in those beautiful yellow flowers. Now, the other great thing about the Cherryburst Yellow is that it's also available as a seed, and you're not going to find seed for a lot of these new petunias and petchoas that are out there. So this is a really good opportunity. If you are a seed starter, this is one that's going to perform really well, probably a lot better than some of the other seed petunias that you're used to growing. This seems to be the year for the Petchoa because Super Cal Petchoas came out with a new color. It's premium red maple, and the premiums are great because the flowers are very large. These are fantastic plants, and what I like about this one is that it is a very saturated red, a little bit on the oranger side, but really heavily saturated. And there are a couple Super Cals that have a lot of veining and sometimes experience a little bit of color shift as the season goes on. I'm thinking specifically like of the orange and the yellow and sometimes the caramel and cinnamon. So those can kind of shift a little bit in color as the season goes on. This one, I didn't notice any of that. It's just a nice, solid, beautiful color, gets nice big flowers, and the plant size is just great. And the Petchoas have such great weather tolerance. They can take the heat, they can take the cold, and they bounce back really well from wind and rain. So there's a really durable plant with great colors. And then there's a whole new series of Petchoas coming to the market. It's called Inviva. Now, the flowers on these tend to be a little smaller than the Super Cals, but the growth and the flower coverage on these are absolutely incredible, especially that pink. That thing is just a workhorse, just keeps producing more and more blooms. We're adding 2 plants to the Flower Showers series. The first one is the Golden Harvest. That one is kind of like the toned down version of the Flower Showers Mayan Sunset. So it's beautiful kind of peaches and oranges. And then the other color is the Ringo Star. And that one is a fantastic bicolor. Just look how beautiful that magenta rim is on that. And what's interesting about the Ringo Star is that the flowers are a little bit smaller, but they seem to just grow right from the center of the plant all the way out. So the thing is just a complete cascade of flowers. It's really a nice one, and both of these get a nice large size. The Itsy is getting a pink. Now, we got to test this out last year in the trifecta mix, and it was absolutely fantastic. This plant gets so covered in blooms, you barely see any leaves at all. It's perfect for like hanging baskets and containers because it will just gradually cover the entire pot and create this entire like ball of plant, but you can also put it in the landscape and it's going to look really good. Now, the Cascadia family has added Arizona Sky. This one is really beautiful, and the photo they've been putting out for it does not do it justice. It has that beautiful kind of sunset color. I love the darker edge on it, and then that really dark throat, and in between there's that nice glowing kind of orangey yellow color. It's a beautiful petunia, gets really big, huge flowers, and just look how many flowers cover that plant. It's breathtaking. And then there's the Supertunias. So first off, there's an improvement to Bermuda Beach. So this new version is a little bit more of a coral color compared to the light pink that it used to be, but this new version has more flower coverage, better growth habit. So an overall improvement, really interesting color. One of my new favorites is the Supertunia Hoopla Vivid Orchid. The center color on that is so intense, and then it has that perfect white rim around it. You may notice with some of the other petunias with a rim, it's not always as consistent as what you see here. It's a Supertunia, but it's pushing pretty close to the size of a Supertunia Vista, and you can see it works really well in the landscape and in hanging baskets and containers. The Supertunia Saffron Finch is my favorite yellow petunia out there. The color is extraordinary. It opens a very solid yellow. It does get a little bit of fading around the rim, but it does it in the most beautiful way possible, kind of that buttery outside with that rich inside. It is absolutely a ball of sunshine. Now, I have a little confession to make. I kind of cheated on my photos. Those images that you saw were actually of the bee's knees petunia. But before you kind of get in my face about doing a bait and switch or misleading you, realize that the bee's knees petunia and the Supertunia Saffron Finch share a plant patent number. So that means they're the same plant, they're just being marketed under two different names. And that happens occasionally in the plant world. And I just want to tell you that because if you can't find one, definitely look for the other, because this is a fantastic plant. Whether it's bee's knees or the Supertunia Saffron Finch, they're absolutely beautiful, they grow really well, they're easy to grow, and so I definitely want you to be able to get this plant. So if you can't find one, look for the other, because I don't think a lot of places are going to carry both. So just keep that in mind. It also means that I have a couple years experience growing this plant, because we've had the bee's knees for a little while, and it is so fantastic. And let me just give you a peek at what this plant can do. This was at a nursery outside of Grand Rapids, and that is the bee's knees, aka Supertunia Saffron Finch, growing inside a greenhouse, and clearly they give this plant tons of fertilizer, because that is abnormally large. Even if they had like 6 plants in there, that's really big. Like, that thing is huge. This kind of flower coverage is common for this plant, so that's why I'm so keen to recommend it. We'll also have the Supertunia Persimmon, and that one was introduced last year, but we didn't carry it because the flower was very similar to the Flower Showers Mayan Sunset, so we knew we could only carry one. However, the Mayan Sunset sold so fast last year that it makes sense for us to either get more Mayan Sunset or carry the Persimmon, so we decided to bring on the Persimmon just to add that to our Supertunia lineup. And before I leave the Supertunias, I do want to give a shout out to the Supertunia Vista Jazzberry. Proven Winners has chosen as their annual of the year. It came out, I think, in 2022. That plant is absolutely incredible. In my opinion, it is the best petunia on the market, and I work with a lot of petunias, but this one has that vigor of a Vista. Vistas are like that Supertunia Vista bubblegum, the really big one. The only difference is that, like, the Vista bubblegum kind of starts getting really big, and it gets kind of those little arms, and usually we kind of cut those back, and then it rejuvenates and kind of stays in a nice mound. Not the Jazzberry. Jazzberry stays in its lane, keeps that beautiful mounding habit, flowers non-stop, just going and going and going. It's the petunia we don't really have to do much with. As long as it's getting its water, fertilizer, and sunlight, it just goes. And I'm calling that one out because I am often asked, like, what's your favorite petunia, or what's the best petunia? And that one constantly rises to the top. Now, another plant that's out new in the petunia category is the T series, and these are so elegant and beautiful. The veining pattern on them is like a little piece of art. Almost reminds me of kind of like an Indian tapestry, or some kind of really beautiful exotic like cloisonne or something. It's just really different. The flowers are very, very large and cover the plant completely, and they get nice and big. And if you look at the purple-green rim, it looks very similar to the Supertunia Picasso in purple, but it is a little different. The plant is a little more airy, but it's just as vigorous, gets that great flower coverage. It's just a wonderful addition. Now for sweet potato vine, I'm going to start with a plant that was new last year, and that's the Sweet Caroline Upside Key Lime and Black Coffee. We love this plant. It's a really vigorous climbing and trailing type of sweet potato vine. It grew like crazy. My sister put it on her deck, and that was one plant that grew up and over and down. It was unbelievable. But we have a little problem, because that's one of the plants that we have to get kind of in a higher quantity, and a higher quantity than maybe what our market can handle. We're not a real big giant operation. So we had to make a decision. Either we were to only get one of the colors, or we could try the SolarTower varieties. I got to see these in Trial Garden. They have that vigor, they have that climbing and trailing habit. These are great plants if you need to cover a lot of space. The big difference between SolarTower and Upside is the black SolarTower has more of a heart-shaped leaf. Meanwhile, the lime has that kind of deeply lobed leaf. So they're a little bit different on that front, but just amazing. And they grow really great together, or you can grow them individually. This is a super vigorous plant. So I definitely recommend it if you want big. Just be careful what you plant it with, because it could overtake some of your other plants. Now in Lantana, the one to watch is the Passionfruit. This is more of a basket variety, which means it is kind of a mounding and trailing variety, and it will drape over the edge of the pot, and it has a very interesting color. It's kind of got this golden orange and then a really interesting purplish pink color that looks absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to get this in some containers. Now in Osteospermum, or as we like to call them, Osteos, we really like the Zion series. So new this year is the pink orbit. So take a look at that halo inside that pink flower. Really nice. And then there's the orange burst. That is so beautiful with that dark eye, then the yellow, then a nice kind of glowing orange to it. We're also bringing in voltage gold. This one has a golden yellow that is extremely saturated, a lot more intense than a lot of the other yellows that are out there. It's really a nice one. I really liked how it flowered and how it grew. Now last year we carried the blue passion flower, and we got a lot of photos from people who grew it because it has this interesting flower. They just loved it. It's a vining plant, so it grows a little different. It's not going to be one of those covered in flower plants, but each flower is absolutely a work of art. So we're adding the Scarlet Flame just to give people who want something a little different exactly what they're looking for. We like to have a lot of colors of Streptocarpus. This year we're adding Cherry Ice, and all the ice series are really nice because they have that really nice contrast between their white and then whatever color they are. And the cherry is a nice kind of dark, rich, kind of pinky red color that we're really a fan of. In the Black-Eyed Susan Vine, Sunny Rose Sensation is the plant I've been waiting for. A lot of times those kind of unique colors of Black-Eyed Susan Vine kind of maybe don't have as much flower power, or they don't get quite as vigorous. This one delivers. I was very happy when I saw it. It fills up really well with flowers. It grows really nice. It's a great climber. It also will do the trailing action if you train it downwards as well. The flowers do open a little darker and they fade only slightly, so you end up with a little bit of a two-tone effect on the plant, but it looks great. And I do want to shine a spotlight on a variety that was new last year. It's the Coconut Appeal. This Black-Eyed Susan Vine was crazy. Like, I have never seen any Black-Eyed Susan Vine, or also called Thunbergia, get this big and vigorous and covered with flowers. It was so aggressive that in the pot on the right, it overtook a Supertunia Mini Vista Yellow. For any plant to be able to overtake a Supertunia Vista, that's a new level of vigor. This plant is crazy, and it will train up a trellis really easily. We were trying to bring it downward because we wanted to cover the pot, which is exactly what it did, but we kind of learned a lesson with this one. You either have to really keep an eye on it, so you're always training the tendrils to move outward if you want it to kind of grow down the pot, or if you want it to grow up, you have to train it upwards. Otherwise, it just goes wherever it wants. So we could have been kind of cutting those out or training them forward, and that Supertunia Mini Vista probably would have done fine, but this whole planter was such an easy care plant that we just kind of ignored it. And by the time we realized how vigorous it was, that Mini Vista was already, I mean, it survived, but you couldn't see it. I'm finishing up with Verbena. Last year we went heavy in the Superbenas, and I'm really glad we did. We find them a little bit easier for us to grow. They flower a lot, they get really good coverage, and this year there's some new varieties. The Superbena Cherryburst, that one's improved this year. It's a really nice bicolor. That striping is absolutely gorgeous. And what I find fascinating is that you can put it with like a dark red like this one, and it looks really, really nice, blends nicely with it. But you can also put it with like a pink or a coral, and it starts taking on those colors as well. So it's really more versatile than I ever would have expected. And the other new one is the Superbena Pink Cashmere. And when I first saw the photos of this, I thought, oh, it's kind of washed out. There's not a lot of pink in there. Then I saw it in person. It's this beautiful cotton candy pink. This plant gets covered in flowers. It's really elegant and beautiful as far as color goes. And we also added the Firehouse Burgundy, and we added that one because it is such a stunning color. It was in one of our combos last year, and we just kept going back to it because it looks so good, especially with that bee's knees petunia, that yellow and that really nice kind of pink color. It was one of our favorites and a customer favorite. So those are my favorite new annuals for this coming season. I'm curious to hear which ones are your favorites or which ones you're most looking forward to. I have the advantage of seeing them in the trial gardens, so I get to have my favorites based on real actual experience, but that also means that I feel very confident in recommending these to you because I would not recommend a plant that I thought was gonna kind of bomb on you. So do tell me about that, or if there's plants that you're adding to your collection that maybe you never grew before that you're looking forward to, or if you know of other new plants, let me know, or you can ask me about them because there might be some that are new this year that I didn't include, and that would be intentional in most cases. But there are some varieties that I never heard of, so I want to hear about those too. So share that with me. I really want to know. And if you haven't seen my first video, go ahead and watch that because there are some incredible varieties listed in there. And remember to subscribe because I have some new videos coming out, especially some that are kind of some inspiration for containers that I saw in my travels over the last year, and then just more about the new varieties and kind of things that we're kind of bringing on board and things that we're going to be growing. All those updates will be available just by subscribing, and then YouTube can kind of recommend those videos to you. So I want you to see all this stuff. I just love sharing. So I'll talk to you guys all very soon.